My name is Amanda. I'm 31 and to afford my own apartment in Boston. I've spent the last 5 years working 60-hour weeks as a physical therapist. I finally saved enough for a 2-week vacation to Hawaii, my first real break in forever. When I returned, my apartment had been completely renovated, and my sister Tara was moving in with her boyfriend. My family thought they were helping her. Now they're learning what property laws really mean, that some boundaries should never be crossed without permission. Before I dive into this crazy story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever had family overstepped their boundaries, hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I stood up for myself when everyone expected me to just roll over. I grew up with immigrant parents who came to America with nothing but the belief that hard work would lead to success and pure determination. The value of independence was instilled in me by them from an early age. Never depend on anyone else for your happiness or security. My father would say. I took those words to heart, perhaps more literally than he ever intended. After graduating with my degree in physical therapy, I immediately started working at a rehabilitation center in downtown Boston. The work is incredibly rewarding but demanding. My days are spent helping people recover from injuries, surgeries, and strokes daily. My patients inspire me with their resilience and determination. There's nothing quite like the feeling of helping someone take their first steps after an accident or seeing the joy on their face when they regain movement they thought was lost forever. While my career was taking off, my personal life remained simple. For 6 years, I lived in a tiny studio apartment, barely 500 square feet, with a kitchenette that could barely fit a microwave and a mini fridge. The bathroom was so small I could touch all 4 walls without moving, but it was cheap, allowing me to put a significant portion of each paycheck toward my dream, owning my own place. I lived frugally, no expensive coffee shops, no shopping sprees, no fancy restaurants. I packed lunches, shopped sales, and picked up extra weekend shifts. My friends would tease me about being a workaholic, but I had a goal. After years of saving, clipping coupons, and declining invitations to costly outings, I finally had enough for a down payment. 3 years ago, I purchased my apartment. It's not Huja 1-bedroom on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse in a developing neighborhood, but it's mine. The day I signed those papers was perhaps the proudest moment of my life. I remember calling my parents, expecting enthusiasm, only to hear my father say, "That's nice, but Tara just got promoted at her job. We're taking her out to celebrate. You should come if you're not too busy." That's my family in a nutshell. My sister Tara, 4 years younger than me, has always been the golden child. While I was the responsible, reliable daughter who rarely demanded the attention, Tara was dramatic, charming, and somehow always the center of our family universe. Her achievements were celebrated lavishly. Mine were acknowledged with a nod and quickly overshadowed. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but Tara has a history of entitlement and irresponsibility that my parents have enabled her entire life. She's bounced between jobs, apartments, and relationships, always landing softly because our parents were there to catch her. When she totaled her car, they bought her a new one. When she couldn't make rent, they covered it. When she dropped out of college, they paid for her to find herself in Europe for 6 months. Meanwhile, I worked through college, paid off my student loans early, and built my life brick by brick. I don't resent my sister, but I do wish my parents recognized that their constant rescuing wasn't helping her grow up. My apartment became my sanctuary. I spent weekends painting the walls, scouring thrift stores for unique furniture pieces, and slowly transforming it into a space that reflected my personality. The living room, I painted a warm terracotta that glowed like amber in the evening light. My bedroom was a calming sage green with white trim. I installed floating shelves for my books and plants. The kitchen wasn't large, but I added a butcher block island that doubled as my dining table. My most prized possession was an antique writing desk that had belonged to my grandmother, made of solid oak with intricate carvings and tiny drawers. It wasn't particularly valuable in monetary terms, but it was irreplaceable to me. Grandma Rose had been the one person in my family who seemed to truly see me. She left me the desk when she passed away, along with a letter telling me how proud she was of my independence and determination. After 3 years, my apartment truly felt like home. Every corner had intention, every decoration a story. It wasn't fancy or perfect, but it was mine, paid for with my sweat and sacrifice. When I finally decided to take a vacation, it felt like a huge indulgence. 2 full weeks in Hawaii, completely disconnected from work and responsibility. I'd never taken more than a long weekend off since starting my career. My boss practically pushed me out the door, insisting I needed the break before I burned out. I spent months planning the trip, researching the best beaches, hikes, and local restaurants. I booked a modest but clean hotel room a few blocks from the beach. I even splurged on scuba diving lessons and a helicopter tour of the islands. The anticipation kept me going through long shifts and difficult patience. The week before leaving, I deep cleaned my apartment, emptied the refrigerator, and asked my neighbor, Mrs. Fletcher, to water my plants. I double-checked all the windows and door locks. I even left a detailed note for myself about where I'd left everything, knowing how disoriented I sometimes feel after traveling. I was nervous about leaving my space for so long, but also thrilled at the adventure ahead. Little did I know that my carefully curated sanctuary wouldn't be waiting for me when I returned. Hawaii was everything I dreamed of and more. The moment I stepped off the plane, the warm, fragrant air wrapped around me like a gentle hug. My shoulders, perpetually tense from bending over patients, immediately began to relax. For the first time in years, I didn't have anywhere to be or anyone depending on me. I spent my first day just walking along Waikiki Beach, watching surfers catch waves while the sun glinted off the turquoise water. I dug my toes into the warm sand and felt the tension of the past 5 years begin to melt away. That night, I sat on my hotel balcony listening to the distant ukulele music from a beachfront restaurant and thought, this is what living feels like. Each day brought new adventures. I hiked through lush rainforest to hidden waterfalls where I swam in pools so clear I could see tiny fish darting around my legs. I learned to snorkel and spent hours floating above coral reefs, mesmerized by the rainbow of fish and undulating sea creatures. I tried traditional Hawaiian foods at local spots away from the tourist traps. Poke bowls, lomi salmon, and hopia pie that melted in my mouth. The scuba diving lessons were challenging but exhilarating. My first time descending beneath the waves, Watching bubbles rise from my regulator while tropical fish swirled around me felt like entering another world. The helicopter tour showed me the dramatic coastlines and volcanic landscapes from above, the kind of views I'd only seen in nature documentaries. But the best part was disconnecting. Before leaving, I'd made a promise to myself to limit phone use and stay off social media. I wanted to be present, to experience Hawaii with all my senses rather than through a camera lens. I kept my phone on airplane mode most of the time, only checking messages every few days. On the rare occasions I did check, I noticed some strange texts from my family. My mother sent several messages asking for pictures of my apartment layout and measurements of the living room and bedroom. I assumed she was thinking about redecorating her own space and using mine as inspiration, so I just sent quick responses with the information she wanted. I was too busy enjoying paradise to think much about it. Midway through my second week, I received a cryptic message from my mother. "You'll be so surprised when you get back. Can't wait to see your face." I assumed they were planning a welcome home dinner, or maybe had picked up some Hawaiian-themed decorations for my apartment as a sweet gesture. I replied with a quick looking forward to it and went back to my beachfront meditation session. Vacation passed too quickly, as all good things do. On my last evening, I sat on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. I felt renewed, at peace, and ready to return to my life with fresh energy. I promised myself I wouldn't wait another 5 years to take a real vacation. The flight home was long and cramped, a harsh re-entry to reality after 2 weeks of spacious beaches and open skies. By the time we landed in Boston, I was exhausted, dehydrated, and just wanted to get home to my own bed. I collected my luggage-rumpled clothes and sand-sprinkled souvenirs stuffed inside and ordered an Uber. My driver was chatty, asking about my trip and offering recommendations for his favorite Hawaiian restaurants in Boston. Under normal circumstances, I might have enjoyed the conversation, but after 8 hours in a middle seat with a crying baby 2 rows behind me, all I wanted was silence. As we approached my neighborhood, I noticed more moving trucks than usual on the streets. It was the first of the month. Typical moving time in a city full of apartments with monthly leases. My driver commented on it as we turned onto my street. "Looks like everyone's moving today," he said, navigating around a double-parked U-Haul. Then, as we pulled up to my building, he nodded toward another moving truck outside, moving someone in. I glanced at the truck, noting the logo of a local moving company, but didn't think much of it. "Probably one of the units on the second floor," I replied, remembering that the young couple there had mentioned they might be leaving soon. I tipped the driver, heaved my suitcase out of the trunk, and wheeled it toward my building, excited to be home despite my exhaustion. The familiar lobby with its slightly peeling wallpaper and eternally out-of-order vending machine was a welcome sight. I pressed the elevator button, already mentally mapping out my evening. Long shower, ordering takeout, unpacking, just the essentials, and falling into my own bed. As the elevator climbed to the 4th floor, a strange uneasiness settled over me. Something about my mother's texts and that moving truck outside nagged at the back of my mind, but I dismissed it as travel fatigue and post-vacation blues. After all, what could possibly be wrong? I was coming home to my safe, comfortable space that was exactly as I'd left it. Or so I thought. The elevator doors opened to the 4th floor hallway, and immediately I noticed something odd. The corridor was cluttered with boxers and bubble wrap. As I wheeled my suitcase toward my apartment, number 412, I had to navigate around what looked like dismantled furniture parts and packing materials. Someone's really making a mess, I muttered to myself, annoyed that the building manager wasn't enforcing the rules about keeping common areas clear. Then I realized with growing horror that the trail of boxers and packing materials led directly to my door, which was propped open with a brick. My heart began to race. Had I been robbed? Was someone squatting in my apartment? I abandoned my suitcase in the hallway and rushed forward, pushing the door open wider. The scene inside stopped me cold. My apartment, my carefully decorated, personally curated home was unrecognizable. The terracotta walls of my living room were now a sterile white. My comfortable, worn-in sofa had been replaced with a sleek gray sectional I'd never seen before. The vintage rug I'd found at an estate sale was gone, replaced by some trendy geometric print in colors that hurt my eyes. But most shocking were the people. 3 burly men in moving company uniforms were carrying a glass dining table through my living room, directed by a woman with her back to me. A woman with familiar honey blonde hair cut in an angled bob. "Tara," I croaked, my voice barely audible over the scraping of furniture. My sister turned, her face lighting up. "Amanda, you're back." She bounded over and hugged me as if this were a completely normal situation. "Surprise. What do you think? Isn't it amazing?" I couldn't speak. My eyes darted around the space, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. All my furniture was gone. My books were no longer on the shelves. My art had been replaced by generic canvas prints with inspirational quotes. Even the curtains were different sheer white things that offered no privacy instead of my cozy thermo. Drapes. What happened to my things? I finally managed, my voice small and distant to my own ears. "Oh, we packed most of it up," Tara said casually, waving toward a stack of boxers in the corner. "Mom and Dad helped. Some stuff we donated since we figured you wouldn't need it anymore. The couch was kinda stained and that old rug had seen better days. Donated." The word felt like a slap. "You gave away my furniture." "Just the stuff that wasn't worth keeping," she shrugged. "Kyle and I needed to make the space work for us. Speaking of," she turned and called over her shoulder. "Kyle, Amanda's home." A tall man with a carefully trimmed beard emerged from the hallway that led to my bedroom. "Hey, Amanda, nice to finally meet you. Tara's told me so much about you." He extended his hand as if this were a normal introduction at a dinner party. I ignored his hand. "Why are you in my apartment? What's going on?" Tara's smile faltered slightly. "Mom didn't tell you. Kyle and I are moving in. His lease ended, and we've been looking for a place, but you know how crazy the Boston market is right now. Mom suggested we use your place since you're never home anyway, always working or at the gym. It's way too big for just one person." The moving men continued, working around us, bringing in more furniture I didn't recognize. One of them asked Tara where to put a standing lamp, and she directed him to a corner of the living room, my reading corner, where my grandmother's armchair used to be. "Where's my bed?" I asked, a new wave of panic washing over me as I realized the implications of Kyle coming from my bedroom. "We put it in storage," Tara said. "We brought our California King. It's amazing. Memory foam and cooling gel. You should try it sometime. Oh, And we're using your bedroom, obviously. We set up the living room so it can double as your bedroom. This couch pulls out into a queen bed. I push past her and Kyle, running down the hallway to my bedroom. The sage green walls were now a light gray. The wooden dresser my grandfather had refinished was gone, replaced by a glossy white IKEA monstrosity. My bed, with its handmade quilt, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, an enormous bed with a tufted headboard dominated the space. I spun around, looking for my writing desk. Grandma Rose's desk. It wasn't there. "Where's my desk?" I demanded, returning to the living room where Tara was instructing the movers about where to hang a large television. The antique desk that was in my bedroom. "Where is it?" Tara looked momentarily confused. Then her expression cleared. "Oh, that old thing. Mom took it, said it was technically a family heirloom, so it should stay with family." "I am family," I shouted, my composure finally breaking. "That desk was given to me by Grandma Rose. It's mine." The movers paused their work, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Kyle cleared his throat and muttered something about checking on the kitchen deliveries. "Geez, calm down," Tara said, looking embarrassed. "It's just a desk. Mom thought it would look nice in her sewing room. You can visit at any time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked around again, noticing more details of the invasion. My kitchen now held appliances. I didn't recognize a high-end espresso machine, a professional stand mixer, a juicer still in its box. The refrigerator door was covered with photos of Tara and Kyle in my apartment, where my calendar and shopping list should have been. "Who authorized this?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "How did you even get in?" "Mom has your spare key, remember? For emergencies." Tara said this as if it explained everything, and nobody needed to authorize it. "Mom and Dad thought it was a great idea. They said you wouldn't mind helping your sister out. We're family, after all. You can't just move into someone else's home without their permission. This is illegal." Tara rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not like we're strangers breaking in. We're family. Mom said you'd be thrilled to have company finally. She worries about you being alone all the time." I stood in the middle of what used to be my living room, surrounded by strangers, moving furniture into an apartment. I no longer recognized and felt something break inside me. This wasn't just about furniture or paint colors. This was about my autonomy, my boundaries, my very identity being erased without a second thought. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" Tara looked genuinely confused. "Get out!" I screamed. "All of you, get out of my apartment now." The movers froze, looking to Tara for direction. She laughed nervously. "She's just jet-lagged, guys. Keep working." "Amanda, let's talk about this reasonably. Maybe you should sit down." I pulled out my phone. "Either everyone leaves right now, or I'm calling the police to report trespassers in my home." Tara's face paled. "You wouldn't." My finger hovered over the emergency call button. "Try me." Tara stared at me, her expression morphing from confusion to indignation. "What is wrong with you? We're doing you a favor. This place looks 1,000 times better now, and you'll have company instead of coming home to an empty apartment every night." "A favor?" I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "You call breaking into my home, repainting my walls, replacing my furniture, and claiming my bedroom a favor. We didn't break in, Tara insisted. Mom used the key you gave her, and we didn't just barge in. This has been planned for weeks. Mom's been asking you about measurements and stuff. You responded to her texts. The moving men were shifting uncomfortably, clearly unsure whether to continue working. Kyle had reappeared in the doorway, keeping a safe distance from the confrontation. I thought she was redecorating her house, I shouted, not orchestrating a takeover of mine. It's not a takeover, Kyle interjected, attempting a placating tone that only further infuriated me. We're planning to contribute to utilities and groceries. It's a win-win. Really? I turned my glare on him. I don't recall asking for roommates, let alone offering my bedroom to complete strangers. I'm hardly a stranger, he replied, looking offended. I've been dating Tara for 8 months. We've been at the same family dinners. 3, I corrected. 3 family dinners. And you spent the entire time talking about your fantasy football league. I couldn't pick your voice out of a lineup, let alone want to share my home with you. My phone buzzed in my hand, a text from my mother. We're heading over. Can't wait to see your reaction to this surprise. Bringing champagne. Perfect, I muttered. The masterminds are arriving. Tara peeked at my phone. Good. Mom and Dad can explain everything. You're being completely unreasonable right now. I'm being unreasonable. I laughed incredulously. You stole my home. Borrowed, Tara corrected. It's just temporary until we find our own place. And how long will that take? I demanded. Tara and Kyle exchanged glances. The market is pretty tight right now. Kyle said but probably just 6 months. A year max. A year. The room seemed to spin around me. You expect me to sleep on a pull-out couch in my own living room for a year. It's a really comfortable pull-out, Tara offered weakly. Memory foam mattress. Top of the line. Before I could respond, there was a commotion in the hallway, and my parents burst through the door. My father carrying a bottle of champagne, my mother holding a small gift bag. Surprise! They called out in unison, then faltered as they took in the scene. Me standing with my phone still poised to call emergency services. Tara with tears welling in her eyes, Kyle backed against the wall, and 3 very uncomfortable movers frozen in various positions around the room. What's going on? My mother asked, her smile fading. Amanda, you're home early? We wanted to have everything perfect before you arrived. Perfect, I repeated. You call this perfect? You gave away my furniture, painted over my walls, and moved another couple into my bedroom without my permission. My father set down the champagne bottle with a thunk. Now, Amanda, don't be dramatic. We've improved the place. Those old walls were much too dark, and that furniture was secondhand at best. It was my secondhand furniture in my apartment that I bought with my money. I shot back. My mother stepped forward, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Honey, we thought you'd be happy. Tara and Kyle needed a place, and you have all this space. You're always saying you're too busy with work to enjoy it properly, so your solution was to give it away without asking me. We're not giving it away, my father said firmly. It's still your apartment. You're just sharing it for a while. Sharing implies consent, I pointed out. I never agreed to this. We didn't think you'd mind, my mother insisted. You've always been so generous. Remember when you let Tara borrow your prom dress? Or when you gave her your car when hers was in the shop for 3 months? A dress and occasional car use are not the same as my entire home. I was shouting now, beyond caring about the spectacle we were creating, and even for those things she asked first. Tara stepped forward, her face tear-streaked, but her eyes hard. You're making such a big deal out of this. It's just stuff, Amanda. Material things. Family is what matters. If family mattered, you would have respected my boundaries and my property. I countered. What boundaries? My father scoffed. You've never set any boundaries. You've always been the reliable one, the one we could count on to help without making a fuss. And there it was, the crux of the matter. In their eyes, I existed to accommodate, to make things easier for everyone else without complaint. My needs, my wants, my very personhood was secondary to my usefulness. Well, I'm setting boundaries now, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Everyone needs to leave. Now, movers, please stop bringing things in. In fact, start taking them back out. Amanda, be reasonable, my mother pleaded. Tara and Kyle have already given up their apartment. They have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem, I replied. They can stay with you and Dad. You have that big 4-bedroom house with just the 2 of you. My parents exchanged quick glances. That wouldn't work, my father said quickly. Your mother is redecorating the guest rooms with my furniture, I asked pointedly. My mother had the grace to look embarrassed. Just a few pieces that worked with the new color scheme. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. Here's what's going to happen. Everyone is leaving my apartment today. Tara, Kyle, I'm sorry you don't have a place, but you cannot stay here. Mom, Dad, I want Grandma Rose's desk returned immediately, along with any other items you've taken from my home. You can't just throw your sister out on the street, my father exclaimed, his face reddening. Watch me, I replied evenly. This is my property. I own it. I pay the mortgage. I make the rules. After all we've done for you, my mother said, her voice trembling. This is how you repay us, by turning your back on family when they need you. It was a familiar guilt trip, one that had worked countless times before. But standing in the ruins of my sanctuary, surrounded by evidence of how little they respected me, the words bounced off harmlessly. What exactly have you done for me lately? I asked quietly. Did you help me through physical therapy school? Did you contribute to my down payment? Have you ever even once put my needs above Tara's? The silence was deafening. That's what I thought, I continued. I love you all, but this stops now. I'm going to wait in the hallway. When I come back in 15 minutes, I expect to see the movers packing up, not unpacking. If not, my next call will be to a lawyer. I walked out, closing the door behind me. My legs carried me to the stairwell where I sank down onto the top step, shaking with adrenaline and emotion. For the first time in my life, I had directly opposed my family, drawn a line they couldn't cross. It felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. 0.15 minutes later, I returned to find the movers, indeed packing items back onto their truck, directed by a stony-faced Kyle. Tara sat on the new couch, sobbing dramatically, while my mother patted her hand. My father stood by the window, his back rigid with anger. "Thank you for respecting my decision," I said to the room at large. My father turned, his expression thunderous. "This isn't over, Amanda. You're making a huge mistake." Tara and Kyle had plans for this place. Good plans. I'm sure they did, I replied, but they should have made those plans for their own place, not mine. "We're family," my mother said, her voice breaking. "We're supposed to help each other." "Help? Yes. Steamroll." "No." I stood firm, watching as the movers continued their work in reverse. "I'll be staying with a friend tonight. I expect everything to be out by tomorrow and my original furniture returned." "That might be difficult," my father muttered. "Some of it's been donated." I felt a fresh wave of anger. "Then you'd better start visiting donation centers because I want it back. All of it. Especially Grandma Rose's desk." As I turned to leave to call the friend who would surely take me in for the night, Tara's voice stopped me. "You've changed," she accused. "You used to be nice. Hawaii made you selfish." I looked back at my sister, seeing for the first time not the golden child or the perpetual victim, but simply a woman who had never faced real consequences for her actions. "I haven't changed," I told her quietly. "I've just finally realized my worth. Maybe it's time you discovered yours instead of taking mine." With that, I walked out, leaving my family to deal with the mess they'd created, both literally and figuratively. Spent that night at my friend Jenna's apartment, curled up on her guest futon with a borrowed set of pajamas and a sympathetic ear. As I recounted the day's events, the reality of what had happened hit me in waves. My home, my sanctuary, had been violated. My family, the people who were supposed to love and respect me, had casually disregarded my boundaries and autonomy. "I can't believe they did that," Jenna said for the 5th time, refilling my wine glass. "That's not just inconsiderate. It's illegal. They don't see it that way," I sighed. In their minds, family property is communal property. My name might be on the deed, but in their eyes, that's just a technicality. "Well, the law doesn't see it as a technicality," Jenna pointed out. "What they did is breaking and entering, vandalism, and theft. You could press charges if you wanted to." The thought of seeing my family in court made my stomach turn, but I couldn't deny the kernel of satisfaction it gave me. For once, there would be real consequences for their actions. I spent a restless night checking my phone every hour. The texts and calls poured in, my mother alternating between guilt trips and tearful apologies, my father's messages growing increasingly stern and demanding, Tara's oscillating between self-pity and accusation. I silenced my phone but couldn't bring myself to turn it off completely. The next morning, I returned to my apartment with Jenna for moral support. The moving truck was gone, and the hallway was clear. I unlocked my door with trepidation, unsure what I would find. The apartment was empty of Tara and Kyle's things, but it was far from restored. The walls remained that sterile white, washing out the warmth and character I'd so carefully cultivated. The living room held only my old couch, returned, but positioned awkwardly in the center of the room. My bookshelves stood bare against the wall. In the kitchen, my refrigerator was empty, the magnets and notes gone. The cabinets contained only a fraction of my dishes and cookware. My bedroom had my bed stripped of linens, and my dresser, but nothing else. In the corner of the living room sat several large plastic storage bins labeled in my mother's handwriting, Amanda's things. I opened one to find my books haphazardly thrown in, some with bent pages and damaged spines. Another contained picture frames with cracked glass, knickknacks wrapped carelessly in newspaper, and various small items from around my apartment, all jumbled together. They really didn't care, did they? Jenna murmured, looking into one of the bins. It's like they packed up your life as an afterthought. I sank onto my couch, feeling hollow. I need to figure out what's missing, especially Grandma Rose's desk. We spent the next 3 hours creating an inventory of what had been returned and what was still missing. The list of missing items grew depressingly long. My vintage rug, several pieces of art, my floor lamps, my dining table and chairs, kitchenware, including my expensive chef's knife set, and most devastatingly, my grandmother's desk. I called my mother. "Where's the rest of my stuff?" I demanded when she answered. "And don't tell me you don't know." "We returned everything we could," she replied, her voice small. "Some things had already been given away." "Given away in 2 weeks? How is that possible? Your father knows someone at the donation center. They fast-tracked the processing. And Grandma Rose's desk?" I asked, dreading the answer. A pause. "I've set it up in my sewing room. It's being well taken care of, Amanda. Better than it was in your bedroom where nobody could appreciate it." "It's not yours to appreciate," I said through gritted teeth. "Grandma left it to me. I want it back." "We can discuss that later," my mother hedged. "Right now, your father. And I think you need to cool down and reconsider your position about Tara and Kyle. They're staying in a hotel that's costing a fortune." And I hung up. The casual way she dismissed the theft of my property told me everything I needed to know about how this conversation would go. Jenna watched me with concern. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to just replace everything and move on. Pretend this never happened. But another part wants justice. Jenna finished for me. And you deserve it, Amanda." "Your family needs to understand they can't treat you this way." That afternoon, more friends arrived. Co-workers from the rehabilitation center who'd heard about my situation through Jenna. They brought cleaning supplies, pizza, and determination. Together, we began the process of reclaiming my space, wiping away the lingering presence of the invasion. As we worked, Maria, a physical therapist who worked primarily with accident victims, asked a question that stopped me in my tracks. "If one of your patients told you this story, that their family had entered their home without permission, redecorated, given away their possessions, and tried to move someone else in, what would you tell them?" I paused, rag in hand. "I'd tell them they were being abused, that healthy families don't violate boundaries like that, that they deserve better. So why is it different when it happens to you?" She pressed gently. She was right. Of course, if a patient had described my situation, I would have encouraged them to protect themselves, to establish firm boundaries, even to seek legal recourse if necessary. I wouldn't have expected them to simply forgive and forget. That evening, after my friends had left and I sat alone in my partially restored apartment, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and searched for property lawyers, Boston. The first firm that appeared had excellent reviews and offered free initial consultations. Before I could second-guess myself, I sent an email requesting an appointment. The next morning, I received a response. Attorney Lauren Porter could see me that afternoon. I rearranged my work schedule and went to her downtown office, a modern space with glass walls and sleek furniture. Lauren was not what I expected. Instead of the stern, intimidating figure I'd imagined, she was a warm woman in her 50s with laugh lines and a direct gaze. She listened to my story without interruption, taking occasional notes. "What they did is absolutely illegal," she confirmed when I finished. "Unauthorized entry, property damage. Thefties are serious offenses, family or not. I don't want to send my parents and sister to jail," I clarified quickly. "I just want my property back and for them to understand they can't do this again." Lauren nodded. "There are several approaches we can take. We can start with a formal demand letter outlining the violations and requesting the return of your property and compensation for damages. If that doesn't work, we can file for a civil action. And if Tara and Kyle try to come back, we can file for a restraining order if necessary," she assured me. "But let's start with the letter. Sometimes just seeing legal letterhead is enough to make people realize the seriousness of their actions." As I left the office with a plan in place, I felt both relieved and heartsick. I never imagined I would need legal protection from my own family. Part of me still hoped they would come to their senses, return my belongings, and offer sincere apologies without legal intervention. That hope was dashed when I checked my phone to find a voicemail from my father. "Amanda, this ridiculous tantrum has gone on long enough. Your mother is heartbroken. Tara is devastated. And you're tearing this family apart over some old furniture and paint colors. We raised you better than this. Call us when you're ready to apologize and help your sister like a proper family member should." His words, so dismissive of my feelings and rights, solidified my resolve. This wasn't about furniture or paint. It was about respect, boundaries, and my right to determine what happened in my own home. If my family couldn't understand that without legal intervention, then so be it. I called Lauren and gave her the go-ahead to draft the demand letter. As I hung up, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first, refusing to be the family doormat. It hurt, but beneath the pain was something new and powerful. Self-respect. That night, I slept on my own bed in my two-white bedroom, surrounded by half-empty shelves and gaps where my belongings should have been. But despite the emptiness, I slept better than I had in years. Unburdened by the weight of always accommodating others at my own expense, tomorrow would bring challenges, but I would face them standing tall, secure in the knowledge that I was finally honoring the independence my grandmother had seen in me long before I recognized it myself. The response to Lauren's letter was swift and explosive. My mother called me sobbing within an hour of receiving it, alternating between tearful pleas and accusations of betrayal. "How could you involve lawyers? We're family. Do you know how this makes us look?" My father's reaction was cold fury. His voicemail consisted of 2 sentences. "No daughter of mine threatens legal action against her own parents. Fix this immediately." Tara took to social media, vague posting about toxic family members and selfish behavior. Without naming me directly. She made it clear to our mutual friends and extended family that I had committed some unforgivable act of cruelty against her. Her posts portrayed her as homeless and abandoned by her heartless sister, conveniently, omitting the fact that she had tried to commandeer my apartment without permission. The extended family quickly took sides. My Aunt Catherine, my mother's sister, called to lecture me about family loyalty. "Your mother raised you better than this," she scolded. "Lawyers. Really, Amanda, your poor sister has nowhere to go." My cousin Patrick, however, surprised me by texting his support. About time someone stood up to Aunt Helen and Uncle Bob about their golden child syndrome. Tara's been getting away with murder her whole life. I tried to focus on work, but it was difficult. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members expressing their disappointment or occasionally their support. I started leaving it in my locker during patient sessions, unable to concentrate with the